Good afternoon. My name is Vickie Ayres, and I am the Minutes Matter QuickBooks and Quoting Tech Support Specialist. I am also certified by Intuit, QuickBooks Pro Advisor. I've met several of you already on the forum or while doing some setup consultations, and it's nice to see all of you here today. It's really exciting to me to see how many people are interested in improving the business side of their business by learning QuickBooks a little bit better and talking about our method for creating a quote. If you'd like to ask a question today, everyone is muted, so you'll have to type it into the Q&A field or the chat field in your GoToWebinar control panel. And I will break at the end of each session and answer some questions, but we do have Debbie and Anna here today fielding some of those questions so they can kind of type answers back to you as I work, but we can always go back and take a look at something if we need to when I do the break. By typing in the question, we're able to repeat the questions so everyone can hear, and it'll facilitate the recording of these sessions. It's a large group, so it's difficult to have it where you can break in and ask your questions out loud. Today's webinar is going to be presented in two sessions. In the first session, we'll show the designer style quote using what we call a subcontract window treatment group. And that is a group that our designers like to use because they might get their numbers, their labor number and their yardage numbers directly from their fabricator, and they can just enter them in to this group without doing any calculating at all. And then in the second session, we'll do the quote there where we use the labor and yardage calculation method. And both of those styles will utilize the vertical quoting system or process that I like to teach, where you work up and down through the quote. Now, our industry has its own unique language and kinds of transactions. Minutes Matter recognizes you have some unique challenges when using QuickBooks, and we've created a method that will speed up your quoting and get you back to doing what you all do best, creating and fabricating beautiful interiors. And that is the vertical quoting method that I was talking about. Now, I've got an icon up here to bring up a blank estimate. You can also find that underneath your customer menu, Create Estimates. So we've got a blank estimate here, and we're going to just start typing our customer's name. And I'll click on the drop-down menu to see where we got our customers. We've got Casey Master Bedroom, Casey Greens. We've chosen that, and then when I tab through the fields, it helps me not to forget to do certain things if I need to check and see if I've handled everything. And in the delivery date field, some people have this added to their template and some people don't. I like it because even for me, it kind of gives me a target date that if I'm trying to stay within 4 to 6 weeks out, I can see what 6 weeks out would be very, very quickly. And so while I'm in this field, because it's a date field, I can use the hotkey K. K stands for the letter that's at the end of the word week. So when we click on K, it will take us to the end of this week. So that took us to the day at the end of this week. Now if I click on the K key 6 more times, it will take me out to a 6 weeks projected delivery date. K, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 6 weeks out delivery date. So even if I don't share that with my customer, it's a target date for me. Now, in the item column, I call this the most important field of the entire quote, because here's where you want to always choose a group item. Now, a group item is a special kind of item in our item list that says, okay, when you're trying to do this kind of quote, we assume that you'll probably use the same 15 or 20 items over and over and over again. So we've collected them all together like a little basket and put all those individual items in it so that when you choose the group, it populates the proposal with 90% of the items that you will need most of the time. And we've also named them so that when you type G dash, it shows us just the groups, and then we can choose the one that we want to use today. Now, when we scroll down, you can see that I've got a group called the subcontract window treatment, so I'm going to choose that one.
Hello, Vickie.
And when yes?
The screen is frozen. Can you check and see if there's an issue?
The screen is frozen.
Yes, no one has been able to see anything.
Well,
All they
my
can
internet
see
is at full power. We're not on like a pause or anything, are we? Well, yes, no. The screen is paused. How about that?
There we go. We can see it now.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you.
So we'll just kind of discuss what I did while you couldn't see the changes. We were up here in the top, and we chose our customer, master bedroom, and then we tabbed through the fields, showing or handling every single one of the fields. Now I'm going to go back to today's date so that you can see the delivery date hotkey. Hitting the K key one time takes us to the end of this week, and then hitting the K key 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 takes us out to a week 6, or it takes us out to a date 6 weeks from now. So that way you can use that projected delivery date for your benefit or for your customers. And I'm going to go back here and I'm going to delete this group so that you can see it come onto the estimate. We start with a blank estimate, and when we type G dash, you can see that all of the groups come up. And we want to do the subcontract window treatment or the designer style quote, so we're going to choose this group down here. Now when we do that, it will bring in all the individual items that we need. Instead of scrolling up and down, up and down, up and down through hundreds of items looking for the ones we want, this will make them come on automatically. So that group came on and brought with it all the things that we had preloaded into the basket or our group item all together. Now, what we want to do now is what we call vertical quoting, and that is working up and down through columns because our mind likes to stay on the same kind of task, doing things over and over again. That's the most efficient way to think about things and work on things. So in this column, all we're trying to do is decide what are we going to sell our customer. So of the things that came in by default, what are we going to keep? What do we want to delete? What do we need to change to just a similar item? And what do we want to add because it did not come in by default? So I'm going to use my arrow down key because that's the fastest and easiest way to move up and down through the field. We do want a labor item for our workroom. So arrow down, we do want to sell them a main fabric. Arrowing down, we do want to sell them a contrast fabric. We're going to put some banding on this. And then arrowing down, we only have one contrast fabric, so I don't need this particular item this time. So I'm going to hold down my Control key and hit my Delete key one time gently. Control, Delete. That removed one line, one item at a time. Now, we do want to trim, but let's be a little more specific about the trim that we want. So we're changing to a similar item. Because the trim item was already in here, when we click on the drop-down arrow, we're already in exactly the right place in the item list to be able to choose a similar trim. So we're going to choose the tassel fringe, and that puts tassel fringe on our quote now. Arrowing down, we've got an iron pole. We want some, let's change that to a traversing rod. So if we're in the hardware area with the hardware item, when we click our drop-down arrow, we can just scroll up gently and choose the Kirsch Superfine Traversing Rod. And I know our treatment's going to be 100 inches wide, so I'm going to choose this one. And that changed one item. Arrowing down, now because we're doing a traversing rod, we don't need the finial, so Control Delete. We don't need the rings, Control Delete, and we don't need the brackets. Control Delete. So fast, so easy, you can just move right down through these things deciding what to sell to your customer. Now, I do want some lining, but I think I want white lining. So we're going to hit the drop-down arrow to choose a similar item. We're right in the lining area, and we just choose the white cotton sateen. Now, arrowing down, I would want a white inner lining if I were using a white lining. So I'm just going to choose the inner lining bleached white. Arrowing down, I want to charge a rendering fee and a measuring fee. And the installation, I think we'll sell that per linear foot. And I want to keep my shipping item to estimate how much the shipping will be to bring in everything. Now we need to stop at this point and think, now is there anything else I need to sell to this customer? Well, I think I'll sell her some buttons on the pinch pleats of this drapery. So I'm going to arrow back up to the surcharge area where we've got a labor item up here, and we're going to add another slot where we can add something in. And the opposite of Control Delete is, of course, Control Insert. So when I go Control Insert, I get an empty slot. And when I type in 950, because those are where all the surcharge items are, I already know that that's the area of the list, kind of like an aisle in a grocery store. If I know the numbers, I can get right to them easily, and we have a little cheat sheet that has the numbers for where different things are. So now I can come down and choose the button item, and now I've decided to sell buttons to my customer, and that's how I added another item that I hadn't charged for yet. So I'm happy with everything I'm charging her today. Now I'm going to go back up and edit my descriptions. So now I've decided everything I'm going to sell her to her, and now I'm going to edit descriptions working up and down. My mind staying the same kind of task in order to be efficient. Now this is a 100 finished width by 97 finished length, pinch pleat. You could type that out if you needed to. And it's going to be banded and tassel fringe on lead edge. So you can, expand on that as you need to, or the more descriptive you are here, the more able you are to actually generate a work order from this proposal. And so you would want to be very descriptive about your banding and what size it is and all that. Now, arrowing down, I'm going to just go ahead and delete this text because I know that I want to put my customer's labor, or my workroom's labor number over in the cost column, but that was just a prompt to remind you that you'll have to do that. And I'm going to arrow down to the buttons area. Now I'm going to go to hit my end key, END, and type in that these buttons will be covered with the fabric, the contrast red fabric. And then I'm going to arrow down, and I'm going to describe my main fabric. It'll be Eastland red, and it's going to be from cashmere. So we're just describing the fabric. Now arrowing down, I would type in that this is going to be number 1001, and it is also red fabric. Now let's make that gold. Now arrowing down, we got the tassel fringe, and again we would put in a style number and a color and who we were going to get that fabric or that trim from. So we're just indicating who the vendor is at the end, and we'll put in fabric cut back here. Okay, arrowing down, we don't need to say anything more about the traverse rod or the lining or inner lining, and we end up at the last description. Now this description is where you want to really describe the treatment, all the details. It's living room patio doors, and it's silk embroidered fabric. And you would want to continue to describe that, describe all the details about the banding and the trim and the tassel fringe and the colors. And because this description right here is all the customer is going to see, and it has to justify that big number over to the right that's going to be created once we get all of our cost factors and quantities in. So this is where you need to spend your time and, sell the treatment with the words that you use in the description. That's the end of Area 3, because we're going from Area 1 to Area 5. Now we're going to go to Area 4 and work through our quantities up and down again, keeping our mind in the same kind of task. Well, we're getting one number for labor from our workroom, so 1 is okay here. And the buttons, we want to make sure that they get the buttons on, so we're going to charge 10 buttons right here. And the main fabric, we're going to get that number from our fabricator again, and she said to get 17 yards. Then she told us to get 4 yards of the contrast fabric and 7 yards of trim, and we know we're going to get 1 rod, and we're going to charge 17 yards of lining because that matches our fabric. No good reason to just calculate your lining out to the inch. And then the inner lining will do the same thing for 17, 1, 1. Now the linear feet, our installer is going to charge us by the linear foot. Now if our treatment is 100 inches wide, we can use the little calculator inside of QuickBooks. We're going to see this several times today by typing in 100, and then QuickBooks knows or recognizes 4 keys that are multiplication keys. The slash means divide. That's the slash that's right underneath the question mark. The star or the asterisk at Shift 8, the little star above the 8 key, means to multiply. And then, of course, you have your plus and minus keys up there in the right-hand corner of your keyboard that mean plus and minus. So we're going to take the 100 and divide it, and see how the calculator just popped up? Divide it by 12, and then hit Enter. Now that gives us a number that needs to be rounded up, and while it's still right there in blue, all you have to do is type a 9 because it's already highlighted. Very handy. And that is how you've calculated all of your quantities. Because the numbers came from your fabricator, it was just really easy to add there. Now up here, Area 5 is the cost column. There's 5 more columns, and that's Area 5. So the first one we want to work with is working up and down, editing all of our cost factors. If our fabricator told us that this would be $350, and they're going to charge us 50 cents a button, so we've got that added on there in addition to the $350. Then we can take the main fabric, and we look up our pricing on that, and it was $27.50 for our fabric, our main fabric. Our contrast fabric, we got a real good buy on that at $12.50. And then the tassel fringe, those are a little more expensive. That's where we put our wow factor. So that one is a $45 cost. And you just work down through these, checking all your prices. And a lot of them have been preset by you at, for like your lining and inner lining, your render fee, your measure fee, and then, of course, the linear foot charge from the installer. Now, the last one, you need to just estimate. You look at what your materials are, and you say, okay, I think that it's going to cost me about $55 to bring in all of those materials. You've just edited all of your cost column, working through that one up and down. Now, notice how these different columns work with that cost number. You can never edit the amount one. See how it's grayed out there? The amount column will always calculate with the quantity times the cost gives you the amount. The markup factor is determined when you set up that item. That item has been set up to default to be 50% markup. Now, you can decide on the fly to edit any of these markups as you need to get your number where it needs to be within your customer's budget. So if you think 75% is good there, but I think I'll only do 75% here, and then going on down, I think I can probably get a little more out of my fabric. So we'll go 125% there because we got a really good buy on it. And you just go down editing all of the markups as you need to get your number where you want it. Now, the other thing that you can control is the total column. And I find people don't realize this a lot. They think it will only calculate. If you want to fine-tune this number, you can come in here and say, well, I think that my computer's clicking at me. I think that I want to change this to 100, flat 100. And when you change that, see how QuickBooks then tells you exactly what the markup is. So as you change numbers, you'll see that you're getting a better or lesser markup or margin on your sale. And some places you can get more markup and margin, and some places you may want to deduct back down. So all of these columns interrelate to each other, and you want to get the cost one in first, edit your markups, and then you can tweak the total column if you need to get your number where you want it. And that's all there is to creating a subcontract window treatment group kind of quote. Let's take a look at the print preview. It asks us about our spelling, and then it opens up the preview. Now this particular template has been customized with a beautiful logo style letterhead. Debbie actually has a class that she teaches that shows you how to create logos and things with Studio so that you can take your logo and maybe convert it into a letterhead style if you've got a square style right now. But the customer, because this group is set up to not print item detail, they will see the description where you've really embroidered and elaborated on the description and the total. Now, we'll go back to the actual quote. We actually have in QuickBooks and Quoting a choice between choosing one that prints item detail, and down here we've got GP-groups, and you can actually choose a subcontract window treatment that will print the item detail. So depending on your customer, you can choose one or the other. Now once you've chosen one or the other, that is the direction you must go in. It's like a path that you can't turn around and go back without recreating the quote. So you have a choice between a group that will print item detail and a group that won't print item detail in the same QuickBooks and Company file. And I think that we are the only company that offers that choice. Now, do we have any questions, Debbie, that I need to answer before we go on to the calculation style of quote?
I'm coming. It just takes me a minute.
Probably answering questions.
No, we don't have any right now. So
no questions? I must have done an excellent job.
I know, and probably you need to give people maybe a minute or two because they always start frantically typing. They've been listening really closely. So
they didn't think about typing a question while I was talking. They were listening.
Right, exactly. So
Did
if you guys have any questions.
Anything, Debbie, that you'd like to elaborate on?
No, well, just, you could tell them, have you mentioned about your coaching program that you're going to do another one in the fall, how well it's going?
We're right in the middle of the coaching program, and I'm telling you, everyone has just raved about it. The fact that the coaching program is a new program that Minutes Matters is offering for QuickBooks, where we have a 6-week series of once-a-week lessons, and we keep the group very small. We only allow 10 people to sign up at a time, and so 10 people come in once a week for a lesson, and you can actually ask your questions live during those sessions because they're such a small group. And then after we have our group lesson, each person gets a personal, private, one-on-one consultation later on to either go over the homework that they have for that lesson. There's a little project at the end of each one. And we can either go over their homework or we can actually look at their QuickBooks company file and maybe import or apply some of the things that we learned in the lesson to their actual company file. So we fix things and we customize things, and we talk about how things work in QuickBooks when we go to the personal consultation. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, basically you've had 12 hours of training in QuickBooks, and so we make you interior designer QuickBooks certified. You also get credit for it with your WFCP program, and there's lots of other little goodies and features that you get with that. You get some recorded CDs and things. Now the next group that we're going to be doing for QuickBooks coaching is going to be in the fall, and so watch your emails to see when we've set those dates up. They've not been determined yet, but everybody is just raving about it. They just feel like they've gotten so much more out of it than what you get out of even a one-day hands-on class, because you've got time to do a little lesson, absorb the information, think about your QuickBooks, have your private consultation, and you have time to process the information versus being in just a one-day class. So we're very, very excited about how it's working and what people are getting out of it. So watch your emails for that.
And now I do have questions. See, you give them some time, and here they come. All right, so we have Kathy Rebecca ask, will the March 5th class teach how to do the graphics on the letterhead? then that's not something we usually cover or we do cover in this session. You can either do a private one-on-one or on the on the form, the QuickBooks form, Kathy. We'd be glad to help you do that. And I think that's also, well, I know that's in our book, too.
To actually create the logo, they would need a studio session, correct?
Well, I think how to do the graphics. Oh, if you're wanting to start from scratch, that is more on the studio side. If you're wanting to start from scratch, and now we do have a logo wall template course, Kathy, or if you need to create a logo from scratch, then we have how to create a logo. So we have two different webinars that we've recorded. And then Trish asked, what is the class section for? You want to elaborate on classes a little bit?
Yes, I've got classes set up in this company file because I use it for teaching in lots of different kinds of seminars. Now, classes are something that when you set them up, I don't have any set up in this one right now. This is how I use it in my business, because I have a design business. And I've got retail clients and I've got designer clients. Now, as I'm buying and working through jobs and everything, I might use the item for main fabric. Oh, I clicked on my little email thing and it's going to bring it up. But I might buy fabric, and I use my main fabric item every time, even though sometimes it's for a retail client and sometimes it's for a designer client. And I would like to know at the end of the year how much profit I made with my designer clients versus my retail clients when it comes to fabric or to labor or just to overall profit margins. Now, what will happen is that the process of setting up a class means that in this class field, oh dear, I accidentally clicked on that little email button, and I don't think it's set up to do emails yet, so now it's trying to think very hard about that. But what will happen is that I can run a profit and loss with, instead of one column for my whole company, I can have a column for everything sorted up into what I did with designers and everything I set up that all the work that I did that was with retail clients. By clicking in the class field and create a designer class and creating a retail class, I can compare the two. And I actually have a couple different classes. I've got a designer class, I've got a commercial class, I've got a retail, and a retail COM. Because I like to compare how did I make money with my retail clients that bought fabric from me versus my retail clients that brought in their own fabric. And so I compare those different segments of my business side by side every year, and then I have one more class that's called overhead. So I class every transaction, and if it's more for business kind of stuff that I can't really assign to a particular segment of my business, then it goes to overhead, like fuel or electric or buying samples or something like that. Now, I'm going to try to close QuickBooks right now because that is not going to...
Vicki, I think if you just press Control-Alt-Delete, you probably, just this program is probably not liking what you just did.
There's something about, I
know,
flew over that email button and it was very touchy.
And you were a rash clicker, weren't you?
Well, I wasn't even clicking. It was like automatic.
I don't believe,
So classes are basically just segregating your business into another way of looking at it. It's kind of a multi-dimensional thing. You can look at a P&L that's more of a flat view of your company file, and then the classes allows you to sort it back up in another way.
All right. Now, while you're getting that done, I'll answer a couple more. Mm-hmm. We have Rebecca. I think it was Rebecca. That
adorable, Debbie. Did you see that?
Oh, yes.
I knew there'd be a way I'd bring that in here.
I'm telling you. I know it. And Rebecca asked about if you already have QuickBooks and quoting. I think we get this question every session if somebody hadn't joined before. And if you already have QuickBooks and quoting and you do not have the GP codes that she's shown, how do you get that? That is only available. You can certainly do it
do it.
yourself. Yes, but if you have 2009 or 2010, you can right-click on a G- group code and duplicate it, and all you have to do is add the P in right after the G, and that's all. And then uncheck the box, or check the box. I think it's check the box. And it's very easy to do that. It is so simple. That's one thing Vicki and I loved about 2009 last year, and of course 2010. We both loved. 2010 has some really nice features in it. We've really enjoyed those.
So if you've got a G- group and you right-click and choose duplicate, you just have to change the front of it here to GP- and then click on the print items in the group.
And you want to have a capital P in there so they all look
That
the
would
same.
make sense.
You know, just because some of us are, and you are too, I know you are picky about that too.
Oh, not two of them. So there you go. That's how
And your dash. Yeah, there you go. I guess it's just delayed.
So
And
that's
how
you
easy
get
that
to
is.
see.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's very, okay, let me see if we have another one so you can,
I'll bet it didn't save my estimate.
oh, probably not.
Mm-mm. Oh, that's a new thing in 2010. See how you can click on a little save button.
Oh, that is a
Save it
lifesaver.
and leave it open.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having to do save and close or save and new, you can save it while you're working, and it will keep the quote open for you.
And we have one other, Rebecca, that was Catherine that asked that last question. It's Rebecca that's asking, can you give a little bit more information about the print item detail? And I think that she's referring to maybe the GP codes. And did you explain that they have to start out in one or the other, that QuickBooks doesn't toggle back and forth?
So right here we've used a group that was set up without the check mark, so it won't print item detail when it comes onto the quote. And forever and always, this group will never print item detail. Even if you went back into your item list and went into the group and said, okay, I want it to print item detail, and you put the little check mark in there, every time you use the group from there on out, it would print item detail, but it wouldn't go backwards into all of your estimates and flip them all around and start making them print all the item detail. That would be a bad thing. So once you've chosen a group, however it was set up to either print or not print, that's the way it will come. Now, if we hit the previous button, you can see that there's some quotes back in here that I used the GP- group. Here's one that we did for wallpaper and installation. And then I also put a GP- subcontract and window treatment group right underneath it. So you can see that when I hit the print preview button now, I get all of the item detail. It shows all of the items that are inside of the group. Now it says enter description here because when I created that quote, I didn't create the description for it. And this is actually a 3-page quote because you get all that item detail. They start to get long. And so we get our items flowing onto second and third pages. So you set the group up, and you set it up to either print item detail or not print item detail. And this is why when we went into our item list, we've added the GP one so that you could choose to print or choose not to print, because you can't toggle back and forth. Once you've chosen not to print, you can't just say, okay, QuickBooks, now I want to click on this little button, and now I want all my item detail to print. It's kind of like you took a group and you pasted it down on the estimate, and then that's the way it's going to be.
Well, and that's Lisa is saying you're talking about exactly what her question is about, but she wants to. So what she's wanting to see is she wants to give it to wants it for her. I think for how you either want it for the designer or want it for yourself, but you know how you use the letter.
I always use a G- group with my clients, whether they get the item detail or not. I always use the G- group because I always want to show them the summary. Now, there's a handful of people, like, I've got just 1 or 2 designers that still want to see the detail. Plus, I want a detailed copy for my file. So let's take a look at the function that I use to do that. We use the letter button, and I have a customized template, the one that you use that comes with QuickBooks alone, not with QuickBooks and Quoting, but just straight from QuickBooks is this one, and it's kind of ugly. And so I've gone into and customized one that comes with your QuickBooks and Quoting, and I'll click on Next. And now it's going to go out into my computer and open up Word, and it will take everything that is on this estimate in the detail part and put it into a table in the Word document. And in the Word document, you can work on that just like it's any other Word document then. You can save it to a customer file. You can work with the table, with the table tools, and you get this lovely little and choose the choice to put some lines in it, because I'm over 50 and I kind of like to have lines around things now. So that's how you work with the Word program in conjunction with the QuickBooks and QuickBooks and Quoting, and then that way you can get a detailed copy for your file. And if I have a client that needs the detailed copy, they get the summary style. I always use the G-group, and then I just give this as a backup page to the summary style quote, because the summary style quote has all the pretty stuff at the top and nicely customized, and then this one is just something that they can get the detail.
And we have another question, and I know you've got to get back, but we'll stop here with this last question. Catherine's wanting to, and a lot of people do want to know this, you know, the issue with the 2007 and what versions work with what, and Catherine, I think she has, I forgot what version she had. Let's see.
Well, 2007 will pretty much work with all the different operating systems. It's the Windows 7 won't work with anything other than 2010. Was that your question?
Oh, hang on. She plans to upgrade to
Yes, that is the question, Vicki. She's wanting to know with her if she upgrades from 2000 to 2010, will it work with XP? And yes, it will.
Oh, yes. It's the only thing that you need to be aware of as far as versions, operating systems and versions of QuickBooks, is just that you don't want to load anything but 2010 onto Windows 7. Most of the problems that I've seen where people have encountered 2000 or Windows 7 problems in QuickBooks is where they've loaded up something other than 2010 onto QuickBooks, and then maybe they switched then to 2010. It seems like the problems that come with loading 2009 or older onto Windows 7 kind of hang around even after you've switched to 2010. Now, I believe that over time, Windows or Microsoft and QuickBooks are going to all get these things fixed, but because it's a brand new operating system, we've got to work through the bugs with them. And so the good parts that come with Windows 7, you know, I've heard nothing but rave reviews. And I hear lots of people that are using 2010 and Windows 7 having no problems. It's just when you try to get by with 2009 on it first, that then when you upgrade to 2010, some of the printing issues and emailing issues kind of hang around. So that would be the only warning I would have.
I'm using Windows 7 and 2010. It works fine. It works great.
Yep.
And I love Windows 7.
So just don't load anything but 2010 onto Windows 7, and I have not had anybody have problems that way. Now, I think I'm ready to move on to another quote using the labor and yardage calculation style. And I don't have to explain quite so much this time because we're going to work vertically just like we did last time. And we're going to go from Area 1, which is the header, to Area 2, Area 3, Area 4, and Area 5. So I'm going to start typing my customer's name and then pick her project this time. And then we're going to tab through the fields. And let's make this a retail client just so that I can show the class like I talked about earlier. Well, now I didn't have a class set up, so it's asking me if I want to quick add it, so I can quick add it there. And then we've got our template, our date, our proposal number, terms, well, that went to the address, terms, and delivery date. hit the K once to come to the end of the week, and I'm going to hit it 4 times this time to go 4 weeks out. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our 4 weeks out date. Now, in the item field, the most important field of the entire quote, we always want to choose a group here, and this time I'm going to choose G dash, and I'm going to choose a drapery. Now see, before we chose a subcontracted window treatment because we just wanted to plug in the numbers that our fabricator gave us. This time we want to choose, do we want to do bedding, cushion, drapery, fabric shades, hardware? There's just all kinds of different groups, and you notice that there's lots of different groups here for designers, furniture and delivery, hard treatments and installation, reimbursable expenses and consultations, space planning, staging and redesign. So designers have lots of choices down here for the kind of quotes that they do. And even if you're a designer, it's great to know how to do these calculation style quotes so that if you can't get a number right away from your fabricator, you'll be able to sometimes get the number on your own. So choose the G-dash drapery this time, and then all the little individual items that were loaded into this group originally come up for us on the quote. Now working vertically, I'm going to go down. I am going to do a pinch pleat item today. I'm going to make this column a little bigger so it's easier for you guys to read it. Now arrowing down, we're going to charge for the trim labor item to actually apply it. And then we want to put a labor item for the banding. And I don't think we'll hand sew these, so if we want to remove it, Control-Delete. That was one line removed at a time. We do want to charge the labor item for inserting and working with inner lining. Now here's our main fabric item to sell main fabric. We're going to have contrast fabric for the banding. And then the trim item. Let's choose the tassel fringe again. A similar item, so when we click on the drop-down arrow, we can just easily choose the tassel fringe trim. And then arrowing down, we have our iron pole. Let's choose that traversing rod again. When I click on the drop-down arrow, I can gently scroll up. I'm right in the right place with all of the other hardware items. And so I can quickly choose the traversing 100-inch wide Hirsch Superfine. Arrowing down, I don't need the rings anymore, Control-Delete. I don't need the brackets anymore, Control-Delete. And I don't need the finials, Control-Delete. Now, we do want some lining product, the actual yardage, and so I'm going to hit the drop-down arrow. I'm going to choose the white one. Arrowing down, I do want an inner lining, but I want a white one. And I could choose the bleached white. Now, if you're always changing from ivory to white, you can change this group in your item list so that those are the things that come up by default. So if you 90% of the time use white lining, you'd want to swap those out so that you didn't have to do this work every single time. So those things are customizable also to work the way your business works. The rendering fee, I want to charge a rendering fee. I want to charge a measure fee, an installation fee, and then we're going to want to estimate our shipping. Now again, let's go back up into this area and add a button charge. The opposite of Control-Delete is Control-Insert. Control key held down and hit Insert once gently. Now we have an empty slot, and since we know that all of the surcharges are in the $9.50 area, that takes us right to the place in the quote. Going up and down, we've decided what do we want to keep, what do we want to delete, what do we want to change to a similar item, and what do we need to add this one time to the group that didn't come up by default. Now scrolling up, we want to work in Area 3, which is our description column, and in this case we want to type 100, finished width, by 97, finished length. Now you can see that your yardage prompts that come up here, there's only one line that pertains to this quote. That's the yardage information and prompts that you'll need. So what we're going to do now is highlight the text right above it, and we're going to hit Delete, not Control-Delete, because if you hit Control-Delete, remember the entire item disappears, you'll say a little bad word, and then you'll have to hit Control Insert and bring it back. So when you're just wanting to remove text, you just highlight the text and hit Delete. And that removes the text that we don't need. Now, down here, we're going to remove 3 lines and hit Delete. Again, just removing text. And I've left this little note that tells me or reminds me how much allowance I've made for the heading, hem, and break. Now, I also kind of like to change this number right here. I like to put in what my fabric repeat is here, because the first number in the yardage prompt is always for the yardage that you need per width. If your fabric is a solid or virtually a 0-inch repeat, some of those little tiny dots will have a repeat, but it's virtually 0. So that's the yardage number you would need. If your fabric has a 27-inch repeat or less, a nice safe repeat to use when you're quoting, unless you've got some, specialty fabric that has an odd repeat, this is the yardage you'll need per width. Well, let's say that our fabric is 27-inch repeat today. So I would highlight the information that I no longer need in this quote and type 27-inch and R for repeat. So when I look back here, I'll know that my fabric is a 27-inch repeat and I need 3.7 yards per width. I've removed what I don't need. Arrowing down, I'm going to go to the trim and indicate that that's going to be a tassel fringe on lead edge along the banded edge, the banding edge. There we go. Arrowing down, I want to talk about my banding a little bit. It's going to be 1-inch banding on lead edge with set in 1.5 inches. So I'm just trying to be very descriptive in each field so that when I look back at this later, I can remember what I was thinking about. Now, we don't need to change the description here. That's very descriptive. The buttons, we might want to say that those are going to be number 60 with contrast fabric. Okay, arrowing down the main fabric. Again, we would want to indicate that the pattern, Eastland, red, and that's going to come from cashmere. Arrowing down, we want to do the same thing with contrast fabric. It's number 1000, and it is gold, and we're going to get that from Fabricut. And arrowing down, we'll do the same thing with the tassel fringe. And those of you that watch my presentations a lot, you're going to think the only thing I ever make is pinch pleat draperies with Eastland fabric with gold contrast. And believe me, I actually make some other things. Okay, there we go. We've got that description done. Now, the rest of these are pretty self-explanatory, so we don't have to change terribly much. Now, this particular description, this is what comes in by default, but again, this is where you romance the treatment, talk about the details, because with a G- group that does not print item detail, it must justify this great big number that's going to come over on this side. Now, arrowing up, we're going to enter in how many widths we want to charge labor for. It has nothing to do with fabric yet. Just how many widths of drapery will cover this finished width treatment. So just like you would do over on the side with a legal pad and a pencil, you want to start with what's the finished width of your treatment. In this case, it's 100. Now you want to apply a fullness factor or multiply it by a fullness factor. Now I like to use anywhere from 2.5 to 3 for my workroom. And so I'm going to use 2.5 in this case. So we're going to use the multiply key, which is the star. That opens up the calculator for us, and I'm going to type in 2.5. Now, you know over there on the legal pad, you would divide that by your fabric width at this point. So we divide it by 54 and hit enter, and it tells that this treatment would be 4.6 widths wide. Well, you always want to round up and say 5. Now, arrowing down, we're going to calculate what the trim labor will be per inch going along see the lead edge here. Now we know that we have 2 lead edges, so I would start with 2 and in this particular quote, and then I would multiply by the finished length and just say 97. Now this is just a labor charge. This isn't telling you how much trim to buy, so we're okay to just say take the finished length times 2 and hit enter. Gives us 194 running inches of labor charge. That would be exactly the same thing for the banding because it's being charged by the per inch on here. And the inner lining labor yard is charged based on the yardage for the fabric. So we'll go down and do the fabric yardage in a minute and then come back up and get this number. Now arrowing down, I think I'm going to do, we got 5 widths, and I'm going to do probably 30 buttons total, 6 per width, and then I'm going to figure out my main fabric. Now here we want to start with how many widths we've got. So we'll type in 5. And then we want to multiply that by the number that's up here in our fabric prompt. We need 3.75 widths, or yards per width. So we'll type 3.75 and hit enter. Now that brings up 18 3/4. It's already highlighted in blue, so all I have to do is type in a new number. I would automatically round up to 19 so that I can cut past a crease or on the pattern where I want. So I would type 19, and then I'll flip back up here and put 19 in for the yardage number for the inner lining labor. Now arrowing down the contrast fabric, we get that number from up here in our yardage prompt. It says that the trim that you're going to need, the contrast fabric is the banding. And this number reads like this. It will always assume that you want banding on the lead edge. It also assumes that you want that seamless on the lead edge. So it's telling you that to do 10 panels or 10 leading edges, you would need 3.75 yards to do up to 2-inch wide banding. So I'm going to just come back down in here into my number, and I'm going to type in 3.75. You might want to round it up, but we'll just put in the number. Now the tassel fringe, again, this is assuming that you want it on the lead edge, and it's per lead edge. So we would type in 2, and then the calculator multiply, 3.25, and enter. Now notice how when we stay in the vertical quoting concept, working up and down, it's very easy to think about quantities over and over and over and over again and calculate them because we've not got sidetracked going off to the side thinking about what things cost and descriptions and all that. We're keeping our mind in the same task. Now going down, the rest of these are very fast. We need 1 rod. We need 19 yards of inner lining and lining. And then we need 1 render fee, 1 measure fee, and of course we would do the 100 divided by 12 to get the per linear installation yardage and round it up to 9. Arrowing down, we're done. We've figured all of our quantities. And now it's time to go over and update all of our cost figures in order to get our quote all fine-tuned, that we've checked all of our prices, and then estimate your shipping. We'll do 55 again. And now you want to adjust your markups or adjust your totals to get your quote back to the number that's in your customer's budget. And notice how when I classed this quote at the top, it defaulted to all the classes down here. If you class it up here first, it will automatically fill these in. If you forget to class it up here, then you'll have to class each one individually because you have to do that at the beginning before you start your quote for that to work. But now QuickBooks will keep track of all of my expenses and all of my income as this being a retail job in addition to keeping track of my expenses for all the different kinds of items. Very, very cool tool. It's more of an advanced feature, but it's kind of fun to learn about that and see how you can look at your business in a different way. Let's take a look at our print preview. And this is a G- group, so it's not going to print item detail for us. You see how that shows right there. And Debbie, do we have any questions? I see a little hand mark raised up there, so I'm thinking we do.
All right, let's see. I think we just have a few. Let's see. There was one I answered already, but I was going to have you. Kathy asks, I charge trim application by the yard. Do I have to manually do the conversion before I enter?
What I would do is go into your item list and come up to the 950 area, and there's where our surcharges are. And you can see that the trim labor charge is down here. See right there? And you'll double-click to open up the setup. And if you're charging by the yard, you just come in here, type yard, do the same thing on the other side so we match. And then you would probably change your selling price to, say, instead of 50 cents an inch, you would take 50 cents times, isn't that cool, 36 inches, and you get $18 a yard. And then it's good to keep this cost factor to default to 100%. Because remember how when we're in the quote, we have this, I'm sorry about that, click on the right thing, we have the 100% markup come in. This number is set or determined in the item when you set up the cost and selling price relationship. So if you keep this at 100%, then when it comes up on your quote, it will default to 100% in that column. What I see people do is they'll just go in and just change the selling price, and then these start to look like some real weird numbers because the cost price never got changed when they updated the selling price, and then they've got their own price in there for the selling price, but the cost was never changed, so they've got this odd markup number, and then they're always adjusting their markups. So if you keep in the setup the relationship of 100% markup, it'll come in a little cleaner and easier to work with on your proposal because you know you can always adjust these numbers on the fly in your proposal, but if you keep it consistent in the item setup, you'll have a lot less trouble with that. So whether you charge by the inch or by the yard, a lot of people are charging by the width for interlining labor. And so you would just change that to by the width and put your new pricing in, and then you've customized QuickBooks to work the way that you're used to thinking and working. Debbie?
Yeah, I do. I have some more. And Deborah is asking if this program has some different items for designers. So could you kind of go into the item list and show her that Anna's already kind of answered, but there might be some other people that have that same question, so I thought we'd address it again.
In the item list, you've got all those group items down here. And in the group items, we've set up several that designers really like. Now remember, everything that is GP- is a duplicate of G- in here. So you've got one that'll print, one that won't. But in addition to the fabricating ones, we've got a furniture and delivery group that has seating and tables and miscellaneous upholstered furniture and chests and drawers, chairs, cabinets. All these things will come in automatically so that you can create a furniture and a delivery style quote for as a designer when you're selling furniture and you want to customize it with a custom fabric or pillows that are added to it, all kinds of things like that. And then of course we have a hard treatment and installation. We also have a hardware only item, reimbursable expenses and consultation item, space planning, staging and redesign, and then, of course, the subcontracted window treatment where you just plug in the numbers. And then we've got a wallpaper and installation one. I've worked with some designers that wanted to tweak it up a little bit. They've created new groups for like an accessory package where they're going in and just accessorizing a room. So someone created groups using the designer items for that. And we've got, let's see, I think they're right here, a whole section that are like interior designer items, accessories, artwork, case goods, flooring, lighting, upholstered furniture, wallpaper, and of course you can customize each one of these particular areas that if you want to keep track of accessories for glassware or place settings. I helped somebody set that up. So each one of these things can be customized for a designer in particular the way that you do work and what kind
Vickie,
of showroom you may have.
On, like, for instance, stay right there for a minute. On rugs, they could say you could even have another sub-level under rugs that say that you buy this certain type of seagrass rug with a band on the, and you love this particular rug. You may order it in different sizes, but you could have a sub-item under rugs with this, have the SKU, have the number, have the sizes if you wanted. If you know that you order that several times a year, I would personally create item codes for those, set up for exact what you want with the SKU number so that every time you order it, you know the size. It's going to pop right in there for you, and that would pertain to lighting. Say that you have a lamp or just different things that you use on a regular basis. This is exactly what we're talking about for, but of course we didn't add those items because they're so specific for every designer is going to have their favorite items from different vendors.
But what I'm showing you right now is that when you've got a rug item already in there, all you have to do is duplicate it and then customize it for the particular thing that you're trying to add. Yeah, I changed the name. I added the manufacturer's SKU. I put in a more customized description that it was a banded seagrass rug, 8 by 10, and then I put the, of course it wouldn't be from Bradford's, but you would put the preferred vendor of that in this list right here so that, QuickBooks now knows where you buy that and if it's this manufacturer's part number. But
and of course you'd add the pricing. Yes.
And then of course you would add the pricing then, and I have no idea what those cost, so we're just going to say that we're going to sell those for $400 and keep our markup or margin at $200 just so that comes in nicely on our estimate. And you've just customized an item, but you did not have to think even one time, what do I use here and what do I use here? Because that's the part that usually confuses people, is what do I use as an expense account or a sales account? So by duplicating a similar item and then editing it up, you can keep your accounting linked up properly, and you say, okay, and now that item has been added to our flooring header as a seagrass rug and in a particular size and style. So that's how you add those items that are specific into your particular company.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions, Debbie?
Vickie, show them how they can show them how you can drag that seagrass by the diamond and put it right under rugs and then make it a subcategory of rugs. Anytime you guys see it,
setup, but I didn't
I know.
There we go. We just moved it around. You can only do it like one level at a time, like one click to the left at a time, come down underneath rugs, and then one click to the right at a time. And so you can move things around that way using the diamonds.
Vickie, I think that is all. Let me see. Wait a minute. I haven't been doing this right. Is there a way to correct? And Kathy, I'm not sure. You might have to email or post on our forum.
Oh, yes. Any questions that you've got for me later today, my email is Vickie, Vickie, @minutesmatter.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about QuickBooks or about QuickBooks and quoting. And, I welcome your questions. It always tells me that people are thinking hard about their business and about their QuickBooks when they do that. And it's always fun to answer those questions. So
well, that's what Kathy was at. She said she hasn't been doing some of this right. Is there a way to correct past transactions? And
it
always
depends on the correction that needs to be done.
Exactly. And
so
sometimes
email me the specifics, and I can tell you.
And sometimes it doesn't matter. You don't have to go back to always correct if it's just a formatting issue. But remember, every day is a new day, so I always look at, you can always get better every day. So, all right, Vickie, I think that's it for today, so we can stop our session, and guys, we'll see you next month.
All right. Thank you so much for coming today. Bye-bye.